So this is part 2 of the story of Shlomo trying to get the shamir, and he finally got it from the cock, who then choked itself because it went against its promise. But in the middle there was an interesting thing that Ashmedai, he was doing some strange things. He helped a blind person, and then he was laughing when people were crying and crying when people were laughing. So now we go back to that and try to explain Ashmedai's strange and weird behavior. Having concluded its description of how Shlomo obtained the shamir, the Gemara explains the behavior of Ashmedai as he was being taken to Yerushalayim. Amrle Benayahu said to Ashmedai, "Why, when you saw that blind man who had lost his way, did you guide him back on his way? Why were you concerned for his welfare?" So what's the question? Isn't it a good thing to help someone that's blind? That's someone that can't see the way. What is the problem? So if we look at footnote 1, demons normally seek to harm people, as shown by Ashmedai's destruction of the palm tree and the house against which he had brushed. Therefore, Benio wondered why here Ashmedai acted in a seemingly kind manner. So that's the question. Because Ashmedai is the king of demons, so why is he being so kind? Why is he being so nice over here? So Ashmedai replied to him, "They announce about him in heaven that he is perfectly righteous." The words in the Gemara are tzaddik gamor, and whoever provides him with comfort merits a share in the world to come. Even Ashmedai would not harm such a virtuous person, but even came to his aid. So this is an interesting thing. It sounds like that Ashmedai has a part in Olam Haba. According to this, it says anyone that comes to help him.
This creature of fire and air, what interest does he have in the world to come?
So what is the world to come? Is it Gan Eden, or is it the world of when the soul?
Does the demon die? Does he have a death?
That's a good question. Not sure if they could die. It says, what were the three things? Fire and water. It says, what were the three things that they're similar to humans? It says they eat and drink. They're able to procreate. There was one more thing. I forgot if they die. Okay, so they have a soul. And they're mainly soul. They're more soul than body in a way. They're like a soul without a body, kind of. So then Benio asked, "And why, when you saw that drunkard who had lost his way, did you guide him back on his way? And we know that he is a wicked man." So the person that he was helping to get back on the way was a Rasha. He was a wicked person. Ashmedai replied to him, "They announce about him in heaven that he is an absolutely wicked man. Therefore I provided him with some comfort so that he should consume his reward in this world for any good deeds he may have done, rather than in the world to come." So this is a concept that a Rasha, sometimes, he enjoys everything, he has all the pleasures in this world, and then that takes away his Olam Haba. So Ashmedai over here was actually being wicked because he was trying to take away his world to come. So he tried to help him out. This way he doesn't get a share in Olam Haba. So now he is being demon-like, like we said before, that they try to harm. Benio asked, "Why, when you saw that joy of the wedding celebration, did you cry?" Ashmedai replied to him, "I knew that the husband was going to die within 30 days, and the bride will have to wait 13 years for the Yavam, who is a minor, to reach adulthood." So this is the mitzvah of Yibum, that if the husband passes away, then the brother is supposed to marry the widow. But he has to be old enough. So she would have to wait 13 years in order for him to be of age. So that's why he was crying. So we see from this that, demons have a deeper understanding than we do. They're able to see hear different announcements in heaven, and they're able to see the future, the near future that we cannot.
He's willing to do good, he's willing to do harm. He cares about a woman suffering.
Yes, you see, they have some emotions. Like he's crying. I guess he feels bad over here.
It's self-contradictory. He wants a share in the world to come, which is why he helped the first guy, but he forfeits a share in the world to come when he does evil.
He's making someone else lose their part in Olam Haba. The second story where
he doesn't harm.
He doesn't
and
harm.
Doing harm costs you. So, in the first case, he helps himself. In the second case, he harms himself. In this case, he cares about a woman's pain. It's an interesting guy.
It is. And they add here in footnote 5 that part of the question was, why were you crying when they were having a wedding? Does the joy of people distress you? That was the question that Beniyah was asking the demon. Does it really bother you that these people are happy? And he said, no, I'm not distressed about that. I just see the near future, which is going to be sad and unfortunate for this couple. Okay, then there's the shoemaker. Beniyah asked, why when you heard that the man told the shoemaker, make me shoes that will last for 7 years, did you laugh? What's so funny about that? And then again, to add to this question, on footnote 7 says, do you scorn human foresight? Over here, he was planning ahead. He was planning for 7 years. So again, are you bothered by that? Ashmedai replied to him, that man might not even have 7 days left to live, and he wants shoes that will last for 7 years. So, here it's not that he was laughing about the future. He was saying that this person is planning for such a long time, and the person doesn't really know how long he's going to live. And Beniyah asked, why when you saw that sorcerer engaged in sorcery did you laugh? Ashmedai replied to him, because the sorcerer was sitting on top of a king's secret treasure room. Let him use his sorcery to discover what is beneath him. So this magician or sorcerer, he was predicting and saying all different things, but meantime, there's a treasure which is right beneath him. Let's look at footnote 9. There is a large secret storeroom filled with gold and silver just below the sorcerer. The sorcerer was trying to reveal hidden things, yet he could not see the treasure right beneath him. This made Ashmedai laugh. However, Ashmedai's scorn was not directed at the sorcerer himself, nor was directed at the man who ordered the shoes in the previous incident. Similarly, his weeping upon seeing the bridal procession was not out of pity for all the ill-fated bride. Rather, all of these expressions were intended to point out the weakness of mankind and demonstrate his own superiority. So all of these things are not, trying to show how he really cares for other people. He was just trying to show how he knows more and how little we know of what's going to happen. So this was explaining the different strange things that Ashmedai was doing on the way to Yerushalayim. Cool. You see the inside A. It's a long piece, but the last two paragraphs are interesting. Where it says this idea in inside A on page 149. And the point that they're trying to make over here is to realize, how limited we are in time. We never know how long we're going to live, and so they bring here a nice example. This idea was pointedly illustrated by Reb Chaim of Bolozhin. 2 litigants came before him squabbling over the ownership of a certain property. After hearing each side's claims, Reb Chaim bent down to the ground and placed his ear upon it, listening pensively. When asked to explain what he was doing, he responded that he was listening to what the disputed land itself was saying about the matter. So you have these people arguing, but what does the earth, what does the land say? It was saying, continued Reb Chaim, that it fails to understand the point of the entire argument, because ultimately it is not these people who own the land, but the land which owns them, since upon their demise they will both be laid to rest within it. How foolish then is one who expends an inordinate amount of energy establishing his long-term ownership over a property which he does not truly own. So, all of these things that Ashmedai was telling Benayo was all trying to bring out this idea that, we think we own things and, it's going to belong to us forever. But the truth is, everything is limited. And, we never know how long we're going to own something. This is really connected to our parsha. It speaks about, the year of Yovel, or, that all the slaves go back free. You think you own the slave, you only own it up to a certain amount of time. It goes back by Yovel. Or also, if you sell a house, it goes back by Yovel to the original owner. It's all to show the same idea, how we don't really own something, forever, absolutely. Lashmaya Belimudim adds that in fact all the incidents involving Ashmedai's unexpected reaction at human endeavors carry a similar message. As the Gemara recounts, Ashmedai also cried when passing a joyous wedding celebration, because he foresaw the groom's imminent death, and he laughed at the sorcerer who was reciting incantations in order to obtain his sustenance, while a treasure lay hidden underneath him. The three incidents collectively encompassed the entire gamut of human needs: children through the union of marriage, longevity in the request for shoes that would last 7 years, and sustenance which the sorcerer was attempting to obtain. So we know the three main things that a person needs is bane, chaye, u'mezayne. Children, life, which is health, and mezayne, to have sustenance, parnasa. And these three examples were all related to these things. The marriage is related to children. The person planning for the future, he was planning to live a long time. And then the sorcerer, he was trying to help someone with their parnasa. All three incidents emphasize the narrow perspective from which man operates. Although he must invest appropriate effort in securing his needs, he must remain cognizant of the fact that his limited vantage point renders him essentially ignorant of true workings of the world. So there you have Bane Chaye Mezayne.
Funny, because I see all three things as trying to transcend human limitations.
How?
When you wed someone, you're trying to establish a bias na'ma, and you're trying to...
A binyan adiyad, like an eternal edifice.
When you will have your children, your name will continue, your lineage will continue. When you own land, you're providing for your children's sustenance, not just your own, if you can keep it. And of course, we have all these little workarounds for you over the years so that you can keep your property. Obviously, how long you can live depends on how long you can guide your future and your descendants' future. So all these things are trying to transcend humans' limitations.
So it depends if it's the person by himself or if he has the power of Hashem. Like it says, the ability that we have, to have children and to continue the generations, that's a power from Hashem. That's beyond us.
Yeah.
It's like the idea of the chuppah is something that's above us, which is bringing about this connection and the children that come about.
Right, so the demon is kind of spurning that. And I wonder if he mocks Hashem by doing this, because we do these things and we rely on Hashem to help us to do these things. And the demon is saying, how foolish, how foolish, how foolish, which implies he doesn't think that they're important. And because we do these things and Hashem wants our prayer, and we do these things and we try to do these to continue, he's kind of like saying, it's foolish to try to continue. Which by extension says it's foolish to believe in God.
So that's one way to look at it. Or he might be saying that if it's just from the human's perspective by itself without Hashem, then that's foolish. So either you could say that he's mocking Hashem, he doesn't really believe in these...
Don't do it in the name of Hashem.
Right, so you could look at it either way.
Yeah. Excuse me.
So this was explaining the different things that Ashmedai did. Now, let's go back in on page 150. Even after Ashmedai revealed to King Shlomo where the Shamir could be found, Shlomo detained him for the period in which the Beis HaMikdash was built. So it's not like, okay, he got the worm, he got the Shamir and let him go. He kept him there. The Gemara relates Shlomo's experience with Ashmedai during this time. how long did it take to build the Beis HaMikdash? 7 years. So King Shlomo has the king of demons with him for 7 years. He's just detained. I don't know where he kept him, but so the Gemara says, Tarche Gabei, Shlomo detained Ashmedai with him until he finished building the Beis HaMikdash. I wonder why that is. Why did he have
7 years?
7 years? Why did he have to keep him there? Why didn't?
Work to undermine his endeavor.
Or maybe he was afraid of letting him go. Maybe he'll harm him.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But more important than harming him would be to prevent him from accomplishing his goal of
the Beis HaMikdash. So one day Shlomo was standing alone with Ashmedai. He said to Ashmedai, "It is written, Hashem has the lofty and the towering." This is a pasuk in Parshas Balak, speaking about the prophecy of Bilam, and it says, Hashem has the lofty and the towering. So what are these two things? What are the lofty and what are the towering? And it is said in explanation of this verse, the lofty, these are ministering angels. These are the malachim. The towering, these are the demons. And we're saying that Hashem has both of them. Hashem is in charge and the master of the lofty, of the malachim, and of the demons. The verse praises Hashem by saying that he has sovereignty over the angels and demons. However, it does not mention humans, which implies that Hashem's authority over demons is more worthy of praise than his authority over humans. There's no mention of people, it's just of malachim and demons. So therefore, Shlomo asked Ashmedai, in what way are you demons superior to us humans? So Ashmedai said to him, you want to see? I'll show you. Take the chain off me and give me your ring, and I will show you my superiority. Because those were the two things we mentioned before that Shlomo Melech gave to Benayahu in order to capture him. He gave him a chain and he gave him the ring that had Hashem's name on it. So Ashmedai said, take the chain off and give me your ring and I will show you my superiority. So we see from the story that Benayahu then gave it over to Shlomo. It looks like, whoever is holding Ashmedai had to have these two things. Shlomo complied. He took the chain off Ashmedai and gave him his ring. Once freed, he swallowed Shlomo. Some people say he swallowed the ring. That's a whole different explanation. Then he placed one of his wings in heaven and one of his wings on earth, and threw Shlomo a distance of 400 parsas, away from where he was. Let's look at 14. Ashmedai ejected Shlomo from his throne, cast him out of Eretz Yisrael, which measured 400 parsas square, and assumed the throne in Shlomo's place. He took over Shlomo. And the Gemara comments, regarding that time, Shlomo said in his book Koheles, what profit does man have for all his labor that he toils beneath the sun? That is to say, what has become of me after all my efforts in capturing Ashmedai and building the Beis HaMikdash? He finally, built the Beis HaMikdash, and he's a big king, and now he gets pushed away and sent off. Ashmedai takes over. And the Gemara quotes and explains a similar statement made by Shlomo. Shlomo also wrote in Koheles, and this was my portion for all my toil. This too was an expression of frustration at having been bested by Ashmedai. Of all of his riches, only this was left to him. What was he left with? The Gemara asks, to what does "and this" allude? Rav and Shmuel disagree. One said that this refers to his staff, and the other one said it refers to his cloak. So either he was only left with his stick, with his staff, or he was left with his cloak, with his royal garments. That was left from everything that Shlomo had. We could imagine, how much Shlomo used to have, being a king and just being left with a staff and his garments. That's a huge change. The Gemara describes Shlomo's suffering after being deposed. Shlomo went around begging from door to door. Wherever he came, he would say, I, Koheles, was king over Israel in Yerushalayim. So we know there's the book of Koheles, Ecclesiastes, and it says that that book was written in this period of time after he was sent away from being king. And he was writing, like people think that they're so great, but you never know what could happen to someone. Even King Shlomo, he says, I was king over Israel and Yerushalayim. He's saying not anymore, So that's what it says here in footnote 20. Koheles is a name Shlomo assumed after being removed from his throne. Since the verse is written in past tense, the Gemara deduces that Shlomo stated it during his period of wandering. So there's a lot of depth in what are these two things. What's the argument between Rav and Shmuel, whether it's the staff or the cloak? What does it represent? What are these two things that Shlomo was left with? And they mentioned something interesting in the bottom, in the shaded box. Ein Eliyahu says Shlomo was referring to the spiritual assets that he had attained during his lifetime and were all that he had left. All your physical things you don't take with you, but Shlomo accomplished two spiritual great things. His staff referred to his enactment of the laws of Eruvin. It says that Shlomo, he was the one who instituted the Eruv. Eruv, yeah. So that's like the staff, because one of the ways to make an Eruv is, you put up a stick. And then his drinking cup refers to his enactment of the laws of Natilas Yadayim. So the Gemara says, you see, where did they get the drinking cup from? If you look at footnote 19, it says the first approach is that it's his cloak. Alternatively, kudo is his earthenware drinking cup. So if you look in the words of the Gemara, one says maklo. Maklo is a staff. The other one says gundo. Gundo means his cloak. But there's another version in the Gemara that it means kudoi. Kudoi is an earthenware drinking cup. So according to the second version, that's connected to Natilas Yadayim, which was also instituted by Shlomo HaMelech. So he was only left with his spiritual possessions, spiritual assets that he had left over. When Shlomo came before the Sanhedrin and identified himself, the rabbis of the Sanhedrin said, now a truly deranged person does not stick to one statement, but changes it from one time to time. So what is this? They were surprised because Shlomo HaMelech was repeating it again and again. He was saying, I was Shlomo HaMelech. And he kept on saying this, I was Shlomo HaMelech. If he is indeed deranged as he appears to be, why does he stick to this claim that he is Shlomo? So they want to see if it's really him. To investigate the matter, the rabbi said to Bneo ben Yehoyada, which was the person who Shlomo HaMelech sent before, has the king asked you to see him recently? So this is a whole crazy thing that Ashmedai, he took the place of Shlomo, but nobody realized that he left. Look what it says here on the bottom, 21. All those years, no one noticed Shlomo's absence. Ashmedai just took over and he appeared like Shlomo, I guess. The king was always been seen sitting on his throne. Therefore, if the beggar was indeed Shlomo, the sages suspected that Ashmedai had removed Shlomo and had been pretending to be him ever since. None of Shlomo's servants would have been aware of this. However, since Bneo had once been given the ring that had Hashem's name engraved on it, Ashmedai certainly feared him. Thus, if Ashmedai was posing as Shlomo, he would have avoided Bnei. So, this Ashmedai was pretty powerful. He kicked off Shlomo and pretended to be him. So they couldn't get a good answer from Bnei. Bnei replied no. He said that he had not seen Shlomo. The rabbis then sent a query to Shlomo's queens. Has the king been visiting you? The queen sent back, yes, he visits. The rabbi sent them another message. The next time he comes, examine his feet and see if they appear normal. For the feet of a demon look like those of a cock. So they... I guess. So they wanted...
Birdie feet.
and this, this connects back to the cock in the story we had before. The end of the whole story was that the king of the demons said, "Who has the shamir?" It's the cock. The queen sent back to him, "He comes in his stockings." This is very, very strange, what the Gemara is saying here. Also, he exhibits other strange behavior. He solicits the queen when they are nidas, and he even solicits Bathsheba, his mother. Now, I don't know why, but I don't find any commentary on these two lines. This seems very shocking, that he would ask them while they are nida, and ask, nidas, yeah, when so to say this about Shlomo HaMelech, I don't know, this needs really like a lot of explanation, and if anyone could find, I'm still looking, I don't know, but how is this possible?
A worldly interpretation.
What?
I said, I have a worldly interpretation.
Yes, what do you think?
He lost his mind temporarily. He went temporarily insane.
The Gemara is saying, from one end, they said someone who is deranged wouldn't stick to one statement. It sounds like he's not totally...
That's the guy out there, I'm saying, on the throne.
The demon went insane?
This thing is an agada, so the whole thing could be metaphor. And we know that when you read Koheles, you know that he was deeply, deeply depressed. And, Hevel Kohevel. So, he may have had a bout of serious, not derangement, but, well, yes, derangement and but I tend to try to interpret. Yeah, and so they said, he's lost his mind, but to a biblical people, this would have looked like, he was possessed, or he was disappeared, and something possessed took his place. But that's a logical, rational explanation for this, and that's not the way the Gemara works. But I always try to interpret these things in a manner that makes them reasonable, that God only performs miracles when he absolutely has to. So, for rational. So the rational explanation, he had mental illness in his family. It's his, he was Bathsheba's daughter. Shlomo was Bathsheba's daughter?
Yeah.
Bathsheba wasn't the daughter of Shlomo, of Shlomo, was it?
He was the wife of David. That's the famous story of David and Bathsheba.
Yeah. But was Bathsheba descended from Shaul?
It was Michal. Michal was the daughter of Shaul. I don't think Bathsheba was.
Okay. Anyway, it seems to me like how a primitive and religious people would interpret, a loss of one's senses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to imagine, King Shlomo. He's this big tzaddik. How could he even be at even a certain point of his life on this level?
You could explain that by demons.
What?
One would explain that by demons.
Yes, if it's talking about a demon, then I understand, but it sounds like it's talking about Shlomo HaMelech. Okay. What?
I'm talking about Shlomo. I'm suggesting this is Shlomo the whole time.
Yeah,
Shlomo's brain, Shlomo's personality, his own persona has been, in effect, laid captive by this demon that's taken him over. It just seems like analogous to mental illness.
Right, what I'm saying
the
is...
fact that his temporary speaks to his greatness.
Same thing is that it says by tzaddikim, even by David and Bathsheba, the Gemara says, whoever says that David sinned in the story of Bathsheba is making a big mistake. That's what the Gemara says. So you think about Shlomo HaMelech, to say that he would be in this situation, it's hard to understand. Yeah. Like there's so much explanation of the story of David and Bathsheba, but about this story over here, I don't know, I haven't seen people trying to interpret it and explain it, Okay. Yep. All right, so it requires further research. The rabbis thus realized that Ashmedai had taken Shlomo's throne. Asyu Shlomo. They brought Shlomo the beggar, gave him a ring on which the name of Hashem was engraved, and a chain on which the name of Hashem was engraved. And when Shlomo entered his throne room, Ashmedai saw him and flew away in fear. So now Shlomo is taking back his throne. The Gemara concludes, nevertheless, Shlomo was always in fear of Ashmedai, and that is the reason for what is written. And we say this, or some people say this in Kriya Shema by night. Behold Shlomo's bed, 60 mighty warriors of the mightiest of Israel encircle it. All handle the sword, are skilled in warfare. Each man has his sword at his thigh because of terror in the nights. Why was he afraid? This is because of Ashmedai. Since Shlomo was afraid of Ashmedai, he protected himself by surrounding his bed with 60 of his best warriors.
Is the introduction to Shema Lamita?
Some people say this in the Shema, as part of the Shema.
Like the Reil of Marav Shema or the Shema Lamita?
Shema Lamita. The Gemara relates a dispute as to whether Shlomo regained his original position. Rav and Shmuel disagree about this. One said that Shlomo was a king and afterward became a commoner and never fully regained his crown. The other one said that Shlomo was a king, then became a commoner, and then reinstated as king. So there's it's a discussion if Shlomo Melech really got back to his original position. So this concludes the story of Shlomo and King Ashmedai. And there is a nice explanation of the Maharal on this whole piece. And they try to bring it over here in the notes, but it's missing a lot.
He had fallen so low that it was almost as if he had been replaced by a demon.
Where does it say that?
Page 153 in the long comment 27.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to go to the back over here.
Puresha Agados provides the following interpretation of the entire passage.
Right, so I want to do it inside because they miss out a lot of things here on the bottom. So it's page...
He was crazy with the demon, Shlomo, after it all.
That's my thinking.
After he flew away and the experience affected him for life.
Yeah, he had this trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why he was always afraid.
Is it up?
Is it duff? Just looking for...
What are we looking for?
Just 1 second.
What page is it? What daf?
1 second, I'm trying to find it over here. It's page Shin Mem, like shame. Just Shin Mem, Shin Mem.
I know. Shin Lamed goes over and then it goes next. Aleph, there we go.
I got Shin Lemon. You want Mem?
Shin Mem.
So pretty close.
Yeah, it's another 10 pages.
Shin Lemon base. Shin Lemon Chet. Shin Lemon Mem.
Shin Mem.
That's Shin Mem.
Heard what?
So we're looking, it's...
Recruiting.
Shin Mem Vav.
So it's a few pages back.
Shin Dalet Mem. Shin Mem Hay.
Here, I'll take this off. Give me your book.
Shvi.
Shin Dalet Mem.
So it'd be 4 pages back.
I was in the T-sheet or something.
Shin Mem. So we're looking on all the way on the right, where it says Likutim.
Yes. Matzah.
Mitzad, yes. So we're looking for where it says the highlighted part. V'kasher ratza Shlomo ladas koach hashedim.
Okay.
So I'll just say outside, he was basically saying that humans have a certain power over demons in two things that we have. One thing is we have our neshama, that's our connection to Hashem. Also our body is made in the image of Hashem. And he's basically saying that the chain and the ring, those two things represent the neshama and the tselem, the form that we were made in. The kasher ratza Shlomo lodas koyach hashedim. When Shlomo wanted to know the power of the demons, ve'ein hashedim bekoyach shalahem, rak im yisula kakoyach min ha'adam. The only way demons could perform their power is if you take away the power of the person. Asher hu davuk ba yisbarach. Ki bazeh hu melech alash. That we connect to Hashem through our neshama. Ki bazeh hu melech al hashem. That's how we are kings over demons, which means our superiority over the demons is the fact that we have our neshama that's connected to Hashem. That's number one advantage that we have over them. V'gam yisulak bimenu tsurasai she'adam nivra b'tzelem elokim. It says that the humans are created in the image of God. Ubazeh hu moishel af al hashedim. And that's another thing, another reason why we have control and superiority over the demons.
What is Tsarasa?
Tsarasa is our form. So we have two things, our neshama, our connection to Hashem, and we have the shape, the form of our body, which is B'Tselem Elokim. Ve'elu shnei mailas haya l'shleima. Shlomo had both of these advantages. Ki haya lo hatzura hashleima. He had the image, he had the form. Shari mitzada tzura ha'adam moishel. We know in Bereshis it says that the person is moishel, the person rules, like it says, v'yirdu b'dgas hayam u'ba'ef hashamayim. The person will rule over the fish and the birds. The davar zeh haya l'shlomo. This was a quality that Shlomo had. Ach haya moishel af bel yonim. That's why he was able to control even over the supernal beings. Ulakach Amar. That's why the demon said to Shlomo, Shkoil elu shnei dvarim mimeni. If you want to see how we are more powerful, you have to take away your power. Because the human has the power even over the demons. If you take away these two above mentioned things from the person, then the demons have a superpower. This is how the Maharal explains. What does it mean that the demons swallowed Shlomo? He swallowed Shlomo's neshama and even his body in a way. The power of a demon, they oppose and they're against the form of a person. They are able to kind of swallow up the person's form and his neshama in a certain level. This is known to people that study Kabbalah. So this is an interesting thing. The Maharal is basically saying that demons don't like humans, which means they're trying to harm. They don't like the fact that humans have a power over them. And that's kind of the fight between the person and the human, kind of between the powers of good and the powers of evil. That's what was going on over here between Shlomo HaMelech and the demons. And the demon was basically saying that as long that you have your neshama, your connection to Hashem, and you have your tselem elokim, the form of Hashem, then we don't have any control. But afterwards, if you give those two things up, then we'll swallow you up. Then we'll...
Sounds like a battle between mankind's
Animal soul and human soul.
Yes.
Animal nature and self-control as given by God.
That's exactly. I think that's what the Maharal is alluding to. Yeah.
Who's writing this?
This is the Maharal. This is the one who made the Golem, the Maharal of Prague. Rabbi Yehuda Arya Levoy. So then it says what happened. He's explaining this.
That was a golem. Was that a demon?
The golem was kind of like a robot in a way. It's like it's kind of the opposite, like a body without a soul. It had some type of soul, but it had like a specific mission.
What did it do for the world?
The Maharal made it in order to save the Jewish people from blood libels or anti-Semitism that was going on in Prague. He would send them on special missions to take care of the problems. It's a lot of interesting things about that.
Remember Mickey Mouse, the magic brooms in Fantasia?
I didn't see that.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so then he says, it says that he put one wing in the earth and one in the sky. That's basically saying that the demon is half, or in the earth, half above. Like we said before, kind of a demon is a mixture of both, of the heaven and the earth. And basically, that's when the demon took control over Shlomo Melech. Now, he explains something very interesting about the staff or the cloak. What was that argument, if he was left with his staff or his cloak? So let's go to the second to last line where it's highlighted. Ksiv v'zeha yechalki mikol amoli. It's highlighted on the bottom. One says a staff, one says chad amar gundai, where it says bi or zeh. Explanation of this argument, this dispute between Rav and Shmuel. Ki ha'adam mitzad shehu adam yesh kinyanim. A person, being a person, has things that he owns. Ve'ein adam b'loi kinyan. There is no person that does not own anything. A person has possessions, assets. Va'kinyan harishayin asher hu la'adam pligi. This argument between Rav and Shmuel is a huge discussion. It's not just about what he was left, a staff or a cloak. They're arguing about what is the real possession, what are the real assets of a person. Chad amar makloi. One says this is a staff. Ki hamakel hu meshamish es hanefesh. The staff is what serves the soul. Ki hanefesh pe'eles, because the soul is active. V'hamakel kli ase lifol tzarchoi lekoyach halichasei. A person walks on a cane. It helps you go. It helps you walk. A soul is something that needs to do something. It needs to move, and the staff is your power. A person leans on his staff. So the staff represents really the nefesh, the soul. V'hamalbush hu malbush gufa. Your garments are for your body. Does the soul need a garment? No. It's the garments are for your guf.
Just to clear, it's continuing on the left page at the far left under the Gittin.
Yes. So umachloikis elu hachachamim. What is the argument between the sages? Mar savar nafshay ikar ha'adam. One holds that the soul is the main part of the person. V'kinyan akara v'lanefesh hu hamakel. What is the closest possession that a person has to his soul is the staff. Ulekach amar zechel ki mikol amoli hu maklei. That's what Shlomo Melech was saying. All that I'm left with is just my staff, just my nefesh, just my neshama. Umar
self-controlled flame.
Yes. Umar savar gundai. The other one holds his cloak. Savar kichalki mikol amoli hu malbushay. The other one holds that the main thing is my garment. Shu yeser karev adam mitzad haguf, because the garment is closer to the body. Shu gamkin chelak adam, which is also a part of the person. So this argument is really the difference between neshama and guf. You're saying, Shlomo Melech, what am I left with?
So both is modesty in appearance and what you present to the outer world. That you might have a mind full of lusts and fears and angers and crazy things, but you cloak it in decency and civility, and you live your life as a civilized human being. But he's kind of saying all men are monsters underneath, almost in effect. But they control themselves, they constrain themselves.
The cloak is kind of like what you do to the outside, the way you present yourself. And makel is really who you are. Your staff. That's really connected.
Are we animals with a soul, or are we souls with a physical body? It's a
Exactly.
big deep thing. And I remember reading something that said you don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. And I thought to myself, that's not what the Jews said. The Jews say, Hanashama
Nasata bi.
Big here be.
You put
so
the
you are a
neshama.
person and the soul comes to you. It's a whole question of, is your essence a soul, or is your essence a physical thing, and the soul is a separate thing? And I've thought about that for years.
So look, this goes back to Rav and Shmuel over here, the staff and the cloak. What's the main part of the person? Is the main part of the person is neshama, or the main part of the person is the body? In the Tanya, it actually addresses this question, and it says that this is the difference between a tzaddik and a beinani. A tzaddik, he is his soul, and his body is kind of an addition, something that he has. By most people, it's the opposite. Our conscious being is our body, and our neshamas, we feel like it's added to us.
And yet the bracha you say in the morning acknowledges the position
of being a Beinoni, most people, right? And it says another example for the tzaddik. It says that Hillel, when he would go to eat, he would say, "I'm doing a favor, I'm doing a chesed, because my neshama doesn't need to eat. I'm doing a favor for my body, kind of for someone else."
It scares the heck out of me because I knew a guy who was on an extremely high spiritual plane and he barely fed himself and he died of anorexia. And so I'm very, very cautious and suspicious of people who live on that plane because you can do yourself serious harm.
Yeah, so you have to be on the level of Hillel.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge that you have a physical self and physical needs. And I think that's one of the riches of Judaism is it acknowledges and celebrates your physical needs. We sit around the shulchan, we have marital relations, we have courts to solve disputes, but it doesn't pretend that disputes don't exist. We don't turn
Right.
We acknowledge God rejoices in the fact that we are physical human beings. That we have a group just like any other creature. I don't want to say animal because that pisses people off, but you get the idea. We're created from the same clay as the rest of existence. But so many other faiths try to deny this and separate it. And, say you're not a good person unless you completely, negated your basic, blessing on earth to reproduce, to enjoy beautiful foods, when God questions you, have you enjoyed every pleasure that I permitted you? Judaism says you're supposed to live that life, and I think he expects tzaddiks to sing and dance and enjoy good food. So, it's a super fundamental argument about how we should relate to our animal nature, our created nature.
Yeah, how to view, what's the main part of ourselves? Who are we? This is a question that goes to the core.
How are we to live our lives? Are we to live our lives as aesthetics, or aesthetics? That's a big deal.
And then he explains it in a little bit of a different way as it relates to a king. So a king, both of these things, a cloak and a garment, both are things that are connected to a king.
Kings are super challenged because no one says no. And look at David, he was within his rights to claim this other woman. Kings have these rights that we can only imagine, and some people less got those rights. And Shlomo kind of had a schism over them, it seems.
So, also about a king, so they have two things. There's the staff. What does the staff represent in a king? Malchus, his leadership, his control. Then he has his royal garments, which is also something which is more external in a way. The garments are there to bring honor to the king, but it's not really what the king is about.
The staff is duty, and the garments are kind of authority.
Or respect, like honor.
Yeah, he only has the ability to wield the staff of justice because the power of the throne is vested in him. And if his ministers don't respect the power of his throne, if his soldiers don't respect the power of his throne, then he has no power.
Could be something more to the staff. Aaron's staff grew almonds.
Yeah.
The cloaks.
Aaron he ruled with love.
There was a lot of things that happened with the staff. Moshe's staff he used for the Makos in Mitzrayim to split the sea. There's a lot of things. So again, in other words, you could say that the staff is the power of the king, the leadership.
Yeah.
The garments is more the expression of that, or the honor that the king has. So the question, these two things relate again to soul and body.
When Charles took over from Elizabeth. When Charles took over Queen Elizabeth, somebody said that someone in the past in England had said the only thing that keeps the monarchy whole is ceremony and ritual.
That's like the garment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If it wasn't for all this pomp and circumstance and ritual and ceremony, people would realize it's all just a sham.
So basically, the Maral does take two. So the first way explaining staff and cloak is soul and body. The second way he does it is leadership and like what you said, all the different things that surround the king. Mm-hmm. And he says that they're really the same idea. Like the leadership of the king, that's more the soul of it, and the other thing that's more the body. So both explanations really, on a deeper level, relate. They're really connected to the two things. Now, what's interesting is that Shlomo HaMelech, at this point, like the demons possessed him or took control. But then the Sanhedrin wanted to bring him back. They wanted to bring back the power of the Adam. This is like the constant struggle of a Jewish person between his neshama and between his animal soul. And the Maharal explains the feet. This is very interesting. We don't have so much time, so we'll jump to page Shin Mem Beis. Likutim again. So the line starts V'amru. It's I think 5 lines or 6 lines from the top. V'amru badkan kare. So what was the way to test if it's a human or if it's a demon? He says check their feet. And the Maharal asks kind of why are we checking the feet to see if they're a demon or not? The way to see the difference between a demon and a human is in the feet. Why? Because a person has this importance of his form, like we said before, that we're created in the image of Hashem, yesh el raglov hiskalos. His feet are uncovered, they're revealed, they're open. But the demons, because they're a low entity, a low power, even if they have revelation in their face or expression, what is distant from the face, there is no expression. This is a very important thing. He's basically saying that a person, Hashem made him complete. Every part of the person is expressing something, not just your face. It says you could kind of tell a person by his face, but even the feet of the person are also in the image of Hashem. But demons, because they're incomplete, they're not on the level of humans. That's why you could see that they're incomplete, because their feet are not, they're like hidden or like have chicken feet.
Have you ever heard the expression feet of clay?
Wow, the feet of, what's the idea?
Feet of clay.
That they're like clay, they're earth.
That someone is false, or that someone has a fatal failure, a fatal shortcoming. So he's a leader of the free world, but he has feet of clay, meaning he has shortcoming. Or
that someone's like bound to the earth. So, and then just say it outside, the Maharal goes to the idea back to Bein Hashmashos. He said Bein Hashmashos are things that are in between, right? So a demon is not complete. Like we said, it's kind of like a soul without a body. So that's why it's missing the feet. Something which is complete goes all the way. That's why a human has, from head to toe. But these demons, because they're not complete, they're missing the feet, they're missing the action. So this could be another connection, to explaining really what's the difference between an Adam, between a person and these things, is that our main thing is action, that our feet are revealed. It's not just what stays in our head, but we bring it down to action. The demons, they're missing that part. They're missing the action part. They just stay spiritual. So that's...
Feet of clay is from Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel base, where a statue had a head of gold, a chest of silver, a belly of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of clay, separate, indicating fundamental fragility and weakness of the final kingdom.
Mm-hmm. So about feet of clay, I printed it out, but I forgot to bring it. This is really about feet of clay. So he says, this is another Pirush, not the Maharal, and he says, why do the feet of demons, why are they different? He says, because the foot is connected to the earth. This is feet of clay. Because the foot is what touches the earth, and that's why the power of the tumah, the power of impurity of the demon, is in the feet much stronger, because that's connected to the earth, it's connected to the physicality. That's why you cannot change it to be like a human, miroiv gasus, because how coarse it is, v'achrirus hatuma sheyeshba, how thick the tumah that there is, in the feet. Like you said, earth, like feet of clay, it's connected. Now, this is the Benayahu, I forgot his name, but he was a rabbi in Baghdad, in Iraq, and he says that they have a custom there that when a woman gives birth, Belil Shishi, in the sixth night, I guess, from when she gave birth, and they're very afraid of demons on that night, on the sixth night from giving birth. What would they do? They would put in the room of the woman that just gave birth, shvud echad barzel. They would put an iron rod, tachuv by regel shel tarnagolim, and they would put a chicken's foot on that rod. This is a custom in Baghdad. And they would also put other things on that rod. He doesn't go into that. And he's explaining the reason for this custom based on the Gemara. He says, because our Gemara says that demons have chicken feet, that's why, they put on this rod the chicken feet to scare the demons away, to kind of say, we already caught you, you're trapped, we have you on an iron rod. That's what, isn't this amazing? This rabbi is explaining a minhag in Baghdad based on this Gemara, based on the demon's feet. And then he brings another source from other things that they did, and some other rabbi disregarded it, but he's like, no, there's a source from our Gemara. He says, according to this, it's a proper minhag. It's a good custom. So no chicken feet. You have to get rid of them. Put them on.
People put rabbit's feet around their chest, pendant.
Yeah.
It's a good luck charm.
Good luck charm.
Yeah.
Bad luck for the rabbit.
Yeah, so basically what the Maharal writes very strong after his whole lengthy explanation, he says that this whole Gemara we have to understand more of like a conceptual level. Like you said before, Agadata, not everything has to be understood, like literally. And he says that if you read this Gemara with my commentary, this is how you should, this perspective. It's basically the fight between the good and the bad, between the neshama and the Yetzer Hara. That's really what this whole Gemara is about. And even in Shlomo Melech's life, there was the time that he was in control. Like we said, the human, the neshama is in control, and then sometimes the other side is in control.
You say good and bad, right?
Mikdash was finally done. This happened after the Beis Hamikdash was finished. So
I'm saying there's a whole process.
Overworked, underpaid.
And you say good and bad, but I'm thinking more sacred and mundane, which is not the same thing.
Right, because
not everything mundane is evil.
Right, mundane is in the middle, but demons, I don't know, are they mundane or they're harmful? In a way, demons, they're not just mundane. There's something which is it's a negative power. That's why they're called mazikin. They're called. Just say one last thing. The Maharal says, we said that there's two things: the malachim and the demons. We connected them. Hashem has both. And the Maharal says that when Hashem took the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, Hashem used both of these powers, malachim and demons. It says he used the malachim for the Jewish people, and he used the demons against the Egyptians. Where do you find that? He says within the makos, you have certain things, certain makos were bringing something to the world. Hashem was creating something. Certain makos were just harmful, like, darkness or killing. He says those are demon-like. Mm-hmm. The ones that Hashem was maybe making frogs or something like that, those were, they were harming, but it was through creating something. But what the demons represent is something which is just destructive. So Hashem used both of these ideas of malachim and demons to take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. Yeah. So
robbing an orphan is evil. But eating without acknowledging gratitude is failure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm getting at between good and evil versus sacred and being unsacred or lacking or refusing to be sacred or
profane.
Failing to acknowledge God's gifts. Living like an animal is an ultimate failure. People who go through their whole lives without ever giving a moment of thought to gratitude and or awe and or anything other than
It's an atheist.
satisfying their bellies or their animal urges. They're no better than animals. And so that's a huge failing of mankind's capabilities. That's not evil. That's like a serious deficiency or lack of fulfilling. What was that thing you said? Was I at the funeral? What was the name of the fellow where God asked,
Why wasn't I Zisha?
why wasn't I Zisha? Right, exactly. And everybody who doesn't fulfill their potential, at least to some spark,
It's a failure.
is an utter failure.
So how would you classify atheists? Pure animal?
No, because it depends on how much they think about what they're doing. There's no such thing as a pure atheist. It's not, we're not educated enough to be atheistic. To be atheist means to deny God, and we can't understand God. Anybody who denies God simply doesn't understand it.
But
That's my theory. As someone who went from lacking as a Baal Tshuva, you come to understand that you owe gratitude. You owe thanks. That means you owe awareness. But people go through their whole lives without a spark of awareness about what it means to be human. They eat, they drink, they fight, they love, they die. They don't make they never acknowledge the glory of creation. And so that's a failure at its utmost of being human.
yeah,
But a tiger kills a rabbit. Where's the evil?
that's how Hashem created it. That's His
exactly.
nature.
But a person robs an orphan. That's evil. There's no faith in it.
Yeah, but just it's a very powerful message. The Maharal was saying that Shlomo HaMelech, as a person, we have control over the demons. The only way the demons could control us, he says, take off my chain, or give me your ring.
Right.
Which is basically, it's up to us whether we want to be in control, to be a real Adam, to have our connection to Hashem, or are we going to, take it off and let them control us.
So Shlomo lost control.
But it's not just losing control; it's kind of giving control.
Yeah.
He's like, Shlomo said, "I want to see your powers." He's like, "What do you mean? You have to give us power. You're superior. You're."
Lost. I should have said gave up.
So that's kind of we have to realize that we're in control. The only way that they have control is if we give them that power.
It's almost like the part of the Koheles where he says, I pursued riches and I pursued joy and I pursued all these earthly pleasures and everything. I wonder if that's suggesting the part where he gave up control.
Possibly, and that relates to the part of the story before that they came to Shlomo. There was the 3 days, and he says one day Shlomo was sick because he ate too much. One day it says because he drank.
Did we do that part?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that could all be reflected in like that time or that stage that Shlomo Melech was going through. So now we can understand Koheles in a whole different way, understanding the background. All right, power of good.